the kitchen whispers of crimes unseen. Welcome to Wolfe's Casebook. I am your host, Enigma. Drop a comment with your location. I can't wait to see where everyone is joining from. Onward, into the mystery. I was in the office with my feet on the polished edge of Wolfe's desk. Don't tell Fritz, reading a letter that had spent 3 days traveling from Boston to West 35th Street, which is the normal speed of the U.S. mail if it's not in love. The letter wasn't in love. It was in trouble, and it knew it. Wolfe was behind me, in the red leather chair, a bulk the size of a minor principality, looking contented and lethal at the same time. He had just come down from the plant rooms, which means he had gone through 2 hours of orchids, 1 hour of beer, and another hour of rearranging the universe with a pair of tweezers. He was at his best, full of satisfaction, ready for dinner, and therefore most unwilling to have his evening dented by human foolishness. The dent came anyway. The doorbell rang. Not the polite little chime for friends, but the front bell, something the brownstone reserves for plumbers, policemen, and people who don't know that the polite bell exists. I didn't move. "Archie," Wolfe said. I turned in my chair. "Yes, sir?" The doorbell. "Indicates someone at the door," I said. "I noticed." He glared. "See who it is." "The advantage of size," I reminded him, "is that you can sit there while smaller mammals do the hiking." His lips tightened, but he didn't waste breath. He knew I'd go because there's a difference between a remark and a mutiny. I got up, unhooked my feet from the desk, and went out through the hall. From the kitchen came the faint, cheerful clink of Fritz's kingdom. The air already had that pre-dinner perfume that makes a man remember his childhood and his sins. I opened the door. A woman stood on the stoop in the kind of tweed that costs more than my suits and still pretends it doesn't. She was around 35, maybe a shade more, with brown hair pinned down as if it had learned discipline early. Her face was the sort that makes you look twice for the flaw, and then you realize the flaws that it's too controlled. People with that kind of control usually keep a second set of rules in their back pocket. She was holding a flat leather case and a small parcel wrapped in butcher paper. The parcel smelled faintly of something sharp and herbal. "I'm looking for Mr. Nero Wolfe." The voice was calm, educated, and not asking. "I'm told he's available." "I'm Mr. Archie Goodwin," I said. "You found the right address. Availability is another question. What's your name?" "Lila Vale." I waited a beat. She didn't offer a hand. The parcel stayed hugged to her side like an extra organ. "Come in, Miss Vale," I said. "We screen our callers after they cross the threshold. It saves me a trip in the rain." She made some, walked in without a flicker, looked around with a quick surveyor's sweep, and stopped just inside the foyers. She was listening in a way that suggested she'd been taught to count doors and footsteps. I nodded toward the office. "This way." She came behind me into the office. Wolfe didn't turn his head until she was fully in the room. He doesn't like giving a visitor more than one advantage at a time, and the first advantage is always the knowledge that he's paying attention. Then he swiveled his eyes to her and assessed her as if she were a specimen in a jar. "Miss Vale," he said. Not a question. He'd heard my greeting. "Mr. Wolfe." She moved toward one of the yellow chairs. "Remain where you are." That was Wolfe, opening with a regulation. She stopped, not offended. She'd expected regulations. I went to my chair, but stayed on my feet. "Want your coat taken?" "No, thank you." She set the leather case on the table beside her chair, still standing, and put the butcher paper parcel on top of it. "I won't be long." I heard a soft sound from Wolfe. Not quite a snort, but close. "You will be as long as is necessary. Archie, sit down." I sat. Wolfe folded his hands on his belly. "State your business." She didn't pull out a sob story. She didn't start with how she'd been wronged by a cruel fate. She began like a person laying a chessboard. "I need your help to prevent a calamity," she said. one that may already be in motion. Wolfe's eyelids lowered 0.5 millimeter, which in his language is a shrug. Calamity is a flourishing term. Clarify. She looked at him steadily. That took nerve or practice. I'm the executive director of the Hartswick Culinary Institute. It's a private school in Manhattan. We train chefs for restaurants and hotels. We have donors, sponsors, a board. She made a tiny, impatient motion, like shooing flies, and a reputation. In 3 weeks, we are hosting the Lazzari Prize trials. I saw Wolfe's ears tick. The Lazzari Prize is big enough to be known even by people whose cooking stops at an egg. It goes to the most promising young chef in the country. Cash, glory, and a job offer that usually turns into a book deal. Fritz had spoken of it once, not with enthusiasm, but with a kind of old-world pity for young men who think trophies substitute for taste. Proceed, Wolfe said. The prize trials are held in our main teaching kitchen. It's televised. The donors will attend. The students compete. The winner is chosen by a panel of chefs and critics. She paused. Last night, after the building closed, someone entered the teaching kitchen and altered our stock of test ingredients. Nothing in Wolfe's face moved. In me, a little flag went up. When someone says altered ingredients in a prize trial, you can translate it into sabotage, revenge, or lunacy. Sometimes all three. What was the alteration? Wolfe asked. She hesitated a fraction of a second. Not from emotion, but calculation. The pantry was rearranged. Some items were removed. Others were substituted in their packaging. We don't know yet whether any of it is dangerous, but the intent was to contaminate the trials or expose us to scandal. Wolfe's mouth took on that slight downward curve that means he regards something as distasteful but interesting. It is not an act of culinary enthusiasm, he said. No, she exhaled. It's a deliberate trespass. We discovered it this morning. Our head instructor, Matteo Hartswick, is furious. We can't go to the police, not yet. Not unless we know what we're dealing with. Wolfe's brow rose. Why not? If a crime was committed, the police may serve. She met his eyes. If word gets out that our kitchen was compromised, sponsors will withdraw instantly. We're already in a precarious position. If the trials are clouded, if anyone is injured, or if accusations spread online, our institute may not survive the year. The donors will assume incompetence or corruption. Either is fatal. Ah. Wolfe's tone turned dry. So you are seeking time. And discretion, she said. Discretion is expensive. Time is more expensive, and my evenings are priceless. Wolfe flicked his eyes to me. Archie, please observe that I am engaged reluctantly. I said nothing. Miss Vale didn't smile. You have not established an immediate personal interest to me, Wolfe told her. I have no connection to your institute. You offer no fee. I can offer a fee. She opened the leather case, extracted a slim folder, and set it on the table carefully. Our board has authorized $10,000 as a retainer. Wolfe's eyes went to the folder and returned to her. 10,000 is enough to get him to blink in slow motion, but not enough to make him leap, fortunately for the upholstery. Continue, he said, as if money were a courtesy, not a reason. There's more. She touched the parcel with her fingertips. This is why I came directly, without calling. Wolfe looked at it as if it might bark. I don't allow food parcels in my office, he said. It isn't food for you. She unwrapped the butcher paper, revealing a glass jar with a black lid. Inside was a coarse, dark powder. The smell arrived like a clean slap. Peppery, smoky, with a faint citrus edge. Wolfe sat a fraction straighter. I'm not saying the chair squeaked, but physics noticed. What is it? He demanded. Lazzari pepper. She said the name as if it were a witness. It's the signature ingredient in the final round of the trial. Only a handful of kilos exist. It's grown in a single greenhouse in Sicily and shipped under seal. We received our supply 2 weeks ago. This morning the seals were intact, but the pepper was not. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Not? It was replaced. The jars were resealed so well that no one noticed until Chef Hartswick tasted it. It isn't Lazare. It's an inferior blend, and whoever did it left this jar behind in a lower cabinet. She slid the jar toward Wolfe. He didn't touch it. Wolfe doesn't touch things until he has to. It's one reason he stays alive in a city that tries its best to murder curiosity. Why bring it here? He asked. Because Chef Hartswick said only one mind in New York would appreciate what this means. He said that if anyone could tell the difference between a clumsy prank and a planned assault on a kitchen, it would be Nero Wolfe. Wolfe closed his eyes for a beat, savoring the compliment the way Fritz savors a sauce. Then they opened, hard. Chef Hartswick is presumptuous. He is desperate, she said. He built the Institute. It carries his family name. If it falls, he falls with it. Wolfe looked at the jar as if he could read motive through glass. Archie, he said quietly, take that jar and deliver it to Fritz for examination. He will secure it. I got up. With pleasure. I'm always happy to deliver contraband to a master. I took the jar. Miss Vale's eyes followed me with a quick, sharp calculation. She was gauging whether I'd drop it or pocket it. I gave her my best innocent smile and left the office. In the kitchen, Fritz was at the counter, slicing something that looked like it would later become the kind of miracle that makes men repent. The smell of butter and shallots floated like a bribe. Fritz, I said, holding out the jar, we have a visitor who brings spices. Fritz's eyes widened with interest. He wiped a hand, took the jar, and sniffed, not like a gourmand, but like a chemist. This is not Lazare, he murmured. This is, it is an imitation, but a clever one. Clever is what we get paid for, I said. Put it somewhere safe. Mr. Wolfe wants it secured. Fritz nodded solemnly, like a priest receiving a relic. He tucked it away in a high cupboard that I suspected held things never seen by the heathen world. I went back to the office. Wolfe hadn't moved. Miss Vale had sat down. By now he'd allowed it, or she'd taken the liberty. Either way, she was in the chair, posture straight, hands folded in her lap. The retainer folder lay untouched. Wolfe was looking at her as if she were a problem with a pleasing solution. "You are not merely concerned with scandal," he said. "Your emphasis on Chef Hartswick suggests a personal allegiance." She didn't flinch. "I've worked with him for 10 years. Loyalty, admiration, or fear?" She laughed softly, the first break in her control. "You don't waste time, Mr. Wolfe." "I do nothing but waste time," he said, "when it is my preference. Now listen, a substitution of a rare ingredient in sealed jars implies access. The intruder was either a member of your staff, a student with privileges, or an outsider assisted by one of these. The intent could be humiliation, sabotage, extortion, or blackmail," she said. "Perhaps. Or a crude attempt to rig the trials by weakening a competitor." Her eyes sharpened. "That's what I think. A student entered to disadvantage others." "That is the obvious hypothesis." Wolfe's tone got a little colder. "Therefore, it is likely wrong." She said nothing, waiting. "Tell me about your circle," he said. "Who may benefit or suffer from the trials?" She opened her mouth, then closed it as if counting. 4 students are in the final pool, 1 instructor, and a donor. Those are the points of pressure. "Name them," Wolfe said. She started listing them the way you recite a set of dangerous chemicals. First, Callum Red, 24. Brilliant technique, unstable temperament. He was expelled from another school for fighting. He's talented enough to win, but he's volatile. Wolfe nodded slightly. Next, Second, Junie Park, 22. Quiet, meticulous, the favorite of the critics. She works in the kitchen late at night. She has keys. Third, Rosa Benitez, 26. A single mother, work-study, extremely driven. She is Chef Hartswick's protégé. If she wins, it changes her life. Fourth, Elias Crowley, 25. Charismatic, a social media presence, sponsored by one of our donors. He isn't technically the strongest, but he's popular. If he wins, the sponsors win. Wolfe's eyebrows lifted at that. And the instructor? Chef Hartswick himself. He's on the panel. She set her jaw. He swore the trials would be fair. If someone is trying to stain them, it's striking at him. And the donor? She paused, and this time there was emotion in it, tight, held back. Graham Voss. He funds our scholarship program. He's on the board. His company supplies some of the imported ingredients. He is influential. Influential is another flourishing term. Wolfe's eyes went distant. Does he have a candidate? Yes. Elias Crowley is his favorite. He has a brand deal contingent on Elias's win. Ah, I thought, big money behind small knives. Wolfe stayed silent for a full 5 seconds. That is his way of letting a fact marinate. Then, how was the kitchen entered last night? Are there security logs? We have cameras in the halls, but not inside the teaching kitchen itself. There was no forced entry. The exterior doors were locked. Only staff and advanced students have keycards for after-hours access. Then the intruder's identity is likely within your list, Wolfe said, unless your security is incompetent. That's why we can't involve police, she said quickly. If our security is incompetent and we announce it, we're finished. Wolfe looked faintly bored by that, which meant he accepted it as a working constraint. Very well, I will take the case. She blinked, actually blinked. You will? Yes. He held up a hand when she started to talk. Not because of your $10,000, though that is not irrelevant. Not because of Chef Hartswick's confidence, though it flatters me, but because there has been a trespass upon a kitchen. I'm a civilized man. Civilization begins with food. An assault on the integrity of food is an assault on the integrity of human conduct. I'd heard him say things like that before, and I never tire of it. The man can make a moral philosophy out of a menu. Miss Vale let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Thank you, she said. Do not thank me. You have hired me. Archie will come with you now. He will inspect your institute, speak to your suspects, and bring me their words and his observations. I will remain here. She looked at me then. The eyes were frank now, a little hopeful. That was dangerous. All right, I said. Just so you know, I charge extra for kitchens that have been tampered with. It's a union rule. Wolfe shot me a look. Miss Vale almost smiled. I'll take my chances. Wolfe's voice turned crisp. Before you go, Miss Vale, a question. You said a calamity may already be in motion. What made you sure it is not merely a prank? Her answer came without pause now, like a confession rehearsed. Because someone left a note. She reached into the folder, drew out a small slip of paper sealed in plastic, and placed it on Wolfe's desk, facing him. He leaned just enough to read it. I craned my neck. The printing was blocky, careful, like someone who knew handwriting could be a noose. Let them taste what they deserve. No signature, no flourish. Just a line that sounded like a threat and a grievance had a baby. Wolfe's eyes stayed on it for a long moment. Indeed, he murmured. The sanctity of a kitchen disturbed by resentment. Archie, you will go. And you will be attentive to people, not utensils. Utensils do not hate. I'll keep that in mind, I said. If a spatula tries to stab me, I'll call Saul. Miss Vale stood. We should leave quickly. The institute opens in an hour. Wolfe nodded, already dismissing her. Archie will report to me this evening. You will make all persons available. If any object, inform them that my cooperation is a privilege, not a right." She inclined her head. "Understood." We went out. At the door, she stopped a second and looked back down the hall toward the kitchen. "Mr. Goodwin," she said softly, "please tell Mr. Wolfe that Chef Hartswick's kitchen is not just a room, it's his life. If this is what it looks like, it will kill him one way or another." I didn't give her the consolation she might have wanted. Consolation is a currency I seldom carry on the job. "I'll tell him," I said, "and I'll also tell him you said that. Sometimes it matters who says what." She nodded once, and we stepped into the November air. On the sidewalk as we headed on, for a cab, I had a thought that didn't make me happy. A kitchen is a pretty good place to hide a crime. Everybody goes in, everybody touches something. Heat erases traces, and a little pinch of the wrong powder can turn a career into a coffin without anyone ever needing a gun. I flagged a cab. Behind us, the brownstone stood calm and smug, unaware that its evening had been hijacked by a jar of pepper and a line of printed hatred. Wolfe would be irritated, sure. But I'd seen the way his eyes had tightened at the idea of culinary sabotage. It wasn't the 10,000. It wasn't even the audacity of breaking into a school. It was the principle. Someone had reached into the sacred place where food is made and turned it into a battleground. For Nero Wolfe, that was personal. And when something is personal to Nero Wolfe, somebody else is about to have a very bad week. The cab took us uptown through a light drizzle that was falling with the patience of a bureaucrat. Miss Vale, Lila, if you were her dentist, sat beside me without saying anything. She watched the streets like a person waiting for a sign. I used the time to study her profile. Control is a fine habit until it becomes a mask you can't take off. Then it's just another kind of trouble. We went in through a side entrance on West 57th. A brass plaque announced the Hartswick Culinary Institute in a script designed to make parents feel ambitious. Inside, the place smelled the way money likes to smell when it is trying to be wholesome: lemon cleaner, fresh paint, and determination. There was a wide corridor with glass-walled classrooms on either side, stainless steel glinting inside like an operating theater. Students in white jackets moved about with the focused anxiety of people who think their whole lives depend on how a carrot looks. At the end of the hall, Lila flashed her card and led me through a heavy door into the main teaching kitchen. It was big enough to make Fritz whistle. 12 stations, each with a gas range, cutting surface, and overhead rack. A central prep island the size of a billiard table. Industrial refrigerators lined one wall, and on another stood tall pantry cabinets with clear labels and numbered shelves. Everything was too clean for my comfort. When a kitchen is spotless, it's either new, nervous, or recently scrubbed to remove something. A thick-set man in a gray chef's coat came out of a smaller adjoining room, wiping his hands on a towel. I'd seen photos of Matteo Hartswick in food magazines, the kind of man who looks like he was born with a ladle in his fist and a grudge in his heart. In person, he was shorter than the photos suggested, but the temper was full-sized. Lila said, "Chef, this is Archie Goodwin. Mr. Wolfe has agreed." Hartswick's eyes cut to me, sharp and assessing, then to Lila. "Good. I don't want this festering in my house." He turned to me. "You are his legs. That means you will look, listen, and not get sentimental." "I left my sentiment in my other coat," I said. "Show me what you found." He didn't waste time on ceremony. He stepped to the pantry wall, yanked open a cabinet, and motioned me over. Inside were neat rows of jars, tins, bags, each with a printed label. He pulled one down and unscrewed it. "Smell." I did. Pepper, yes, but the wrong kind. Like a sharp suit that almost fits. "That's the substitute," he said. "Whoever did this knew enough to pick something close. But close is not Lazare." "Where are the original jars?" "In the locked spice vault." He jerked his chin toward a narrow steel door at the far end of the kitchen. Seals intact. That's what makes me want to put my head through a wall. Who has access to the vault? Me. 2 instructors. Lila and the 4 finalists, under supervision, but they have keycards for after-hours practice. His mouth got tight. That's what I insisted on. You cannot train a chef in daylight only. I took another look around. The camera coverage he'd mentioned to Wolfe was believable. There were cameras in the corridor outside, but none in here. The idea is to keep students from feeling like criminals while they learn to roast a bird. The irony makes you wince. Show me the cabinet where you found the extra jar, I said. He led me to a lower pantry unit, 4th door from the left. Back corner, behind flour sacks. Whoever did it knew the cabinet layout. A stranger would have hunted. I crouched, pretending to inspect shelves while actually thinking about people. The cabinet smelled of flour dust, dried herbs, and something faintly sweet. Vanilla, maybe. My eyes went to the baseboard. No scuffs, no obvious marks. If someone had been in a hurry, they'd have left a trail. Whoever this was, they weren't in a hurry. Worse, they were comfortable. Who found the note? I asked. Junie Park. He said it like a fact, and a suspicion rolled together. She comes early. She's conscientious. Where is she now? In classroom 3, practicing pas à choux as if her life depended on it. His lip curled. Perhaps it does. Fine, I want to see the vault. We crossed the kitchen. Hartswick keyed in a code and thumbed a card. The steel door opened to a small, climate-controlled room with racks like a wine cellar. Jars sat behind a wire mesh partition that could be locked separately. On the top shelf I saw the Lazari containers, sturdy tins, each with a tamper seal and a red stamp. They look untouched, I said. They are untouched, he snapped, but when I opened one, it was empty. All 4 were empty, like a tooth pulled without blood. Empty tins resealed, I muttered. Yes, if I didn't have a tongue, I'd still be sleeping. I watched him handle them. His hands were sure, but there was a tremor in the jaw. He was taking this the way Wolfe takes an insult to the orchids, like sacrilege. Let's go talk to your finalists, I said. One at a time, no warning if you can help it. I want their faces fresh. He hesitated, then nodded. Lila, arrange it. Lila's control came back on like a light. Of course. I'll start with Callum Red. He's in the student lounge. She left. Hartswick and I stood there while the kitchen began to wake up. 2 assistants came in carrying trays, and a student in a jacket that was too big wheeled a cart of produce past us. Nobody looked surprised to see a stranger. A culinary school is full of strangers, and most of them are memorable because they're loud. I kept my quiet. Hartswick said, lower now. If this is a student, I will expel them before you finish a sentence. That kind of eagerness can jam the gears, I said. Let me hear them first. His eyes narrowed. I do not protect criminals. I don't protect anybody, I said. I just like to know which direction to point the cannon. He grunted, but didn't argue. We went to the lounge. It was a bright room with long tables, a wall of vending machines, and a bulletin board full of notices about internships and knife skills. Callum Red was alone at a corner table, sleeves rolled up, tapping a pen like it owed him money. Tall, wiry, handsome in a way that looked accidental and didn't trust itself. When we entered, he looked up fast, like someone already expecting bad news. Callum, Lila said. This is Archie Goodwin. He's assisting Mr. Wolfe. He needs to ask you some questions. Callum's gaze snapped to me. The eyes were clear but restless. About the pantry thing? About last night, I said pleasantly. Where were you after 9 o'clock? He shoved the pen down. Not here. That's a location, I said. Try a place. He gave me a look that was half scorn, half fear. At O'Rourke's on 9th, with 2 classmates. You want receipts? I paid by card. Good for you. When did you leave? Around 11. Who can confirm? Malik Shu and Tessa Albright. They're first years. Any reason you came in here after hours? He snorted. You kidding? I don't have a key for after hours unless I sign it out. Hartswick keeps us on a leash. Hartswick's face didn't change. Callum saw it and his jaw jutted. You think I did it, he said to the chef. Not me. Because I got a temper and you never liked me. I think nothing, Hartswick said tightly. I'm waiting to know. Callum turned back to me. Look, somebody hates this place. That note? That's not about winning a prize. That's about trashing you. Whoever did it wants to humiliate the Institute on camera. Maybe. Or maybe Callum wanted me to think so. I nodded as if he'd just told me the time. Anyone you think is capable of that? He didn't answer right away. His fingers went to the pen again. Tap, tap, tap. Elias, he said finally. Crowley's got a sponsor. He's all smiles, but he's a shark. He knows if he wins, he owns the story. If he loses, he still gets followers. This makes him look like a victim either way. Does that mean he'd sabotage the spice? Callum's mouth tightened. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's the only one who'd benefit from chaos. I stored it. The first suspect always hands you another suspect. It's practically a union rule. Thanks, Callum. Don't leave campus. I stood. We'll talk again. As we walked out, I saw his legs still bouncing under the table. Not guilt, maybe, but nerves don't come free. In the hall, Lila said quietly, Junie is next. She's waiting. Good, I said. Let's keep the parade moving. But as we turned toward classroom 3, I caught a movement near the kitchen door. A man in a neat navy suit stepping out of the corridor, pausing to look inside the glass wall like he owned the reflections. His hair was silver at the temples, his posture smooth, and his eyes were the color of polished coins. He looked up and met mine with a calm that didn't belong in a school full of sweating students. Lila stopped short. Mr. Voss, she said. Her voice was polite, but there was a tiny strain. I didn't expect you this early. He smiled, and it was a good smile, efficient, charming, and practiced on people who sign checks. I came to see how my investment is doing, he said. Then he nodded at me, not asking. And who is this? I said. Archie Goodwin. His eyebrows rose a hair. Nero Wolfe's man. Not a question either. News travels fast, I said. Money travels faster, he replied pleasantly. I hope you won't be in the way. He strolled toward the kitchen without waiting for permission, and I watched him go with the small chill you get when a player walks onto the board early before you're ready. Hartswick leaned close to me and muttered, That man thinks he owns my pantry. I looked after Voss's back. Smooth suit, smooth step. People like that don't break into kitchens themselves, but they don't need to. Let's go meet Junie, I said. Because now the circle had tightened, and the air in the Institute felt less like lemon cleaner and more like something that could burn if you held a match to it. Classroom 3 was a rehearsal stage with flour. Through the glass, I saw Junie Park at a workstation, weighing something on a digital scale with the kind of concentration that could make a priest jealous. She was petite, hair tucked under a cap, and her chef's jacket had the Institute crest on the breast pocket. If she was nervous, it didn't leak out of her hands. Those hands moved in a calm, little rhythm. Measure, sift, stir. Check the clock. Like someone who believed control could keep the world polite. Lila knocked and stepped in. I followed, with Hartswick bringing up the rear like a thundercloud that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Junie looked up. Her eyes went from Lila to me to Hartswick and stayed politely open. Chef. Junie, Hartswick said. He kept it neutral, which for him was like a lion whispering. This is Archie Goodwin. He's assisting Mr. Wolfe. He will ask questions. Answer them as you would answer me. Yes, chef? She wiped her hands on her apron, removed her gloves, and stood straight. Still no tremor. I pulled a chair and sat sideways to her station so I could see her face and hands without staring like a dentist. "Junie, I'm told you found the note this morning." She nodded once. "I came at 6 to practice. I opened the pantry to get the Lazary tins. They weren't in the spice vault, so I checked the lower cabinets. The note was in front, taped to the inside of the door." "That's when you noticed the jars were wrong." "I didn't taste them." She glanced at Hartswick, then back. "I don't have his palate. But I saw the cabinet was not how it is usually arranged. Certain sealed items had different shelf numbers. I called Chef. What did you do between closing time last night and coming in at 6? "I left the building at 8:40. I went home." She said it evenly. "I live on East 48th. I cooked rice and eggs, reviewed my prep list, and slept by 10:30. Anyone with you?" "No." "Any reason you might have returned after hours?" She looked genuinely puzzled. "Why would I? People return for practice, to retrieve something, to meet someone, to do something they're not supposed to." I kept it casual. "I'm not accusing you. I just like the shape of the clock." Her gaze dropped to the scale on her workstation. "I didn't come back." "Do you have after-hours access?" "Yes. As a finalist, we're allowed to practice in the teaching kitchen until midnight. We sign in at the desk by scanning keycards. It records time." She said it like a person reciting rules to herself for comfort. "That record show you leaving at 8:40? "Yes. We'll check it." I nodded at her pastry. "What are you making?" "Choux. For eclairs. I'm working on consistency." "Your consistency seems good already." I watched the batter. It was smooth, glossy, obedient. Like her. She allowed herself a tiny smile. "Thank you." "Junie," I said, "do you have any enemies here?" Her smile vanished. She didn't look offended, just startled. "No." "Anyone jealous?" She thought a moment. "We're all competitors, but that doesn't mean enemies." "Competitors sometimes act like enemies when the stakes are shiny enough." I kept it mild. Callum Red suggested Elias Crowley might benefit from chaos. A flicker passed across her face. Not a flinch, something subtler, like a curtain moving in a breeze that isn't there. "Elias is popular," she said carefully, "but he is also talented. People resent popularity." "Do you resent it?" "No." Quick. Too quick for a rehearsed lie. Maybe too quick for comfort. Hartswick shifted, his temper pressing at the leash. "Junie, I want your opinion. Who would do this?" She hesitated. That was the first clear crack. It might mean she was thinking, or that she was choosing. "I don't know," she said softly. "But whoever entered knew the kitchen. They knew the vault code, or they had a card that could open it." "Only instructors have the code," Hartswick said flatly. Junie's eyes went to his face. Then it wasn't a student. Or it was a student with an instructor's cooperation. She didn't say that, but the sentence hung in the air like steam. I said, "Was anyone acting off lately? Anyone hanging around late? Anyone asking odd questions about the spice shipment?" She swallowed. "Elias asked about the Lazary when it arrived. He wanted to see it. Chef told him no." Hartswick's jaw moved. "That proves nothing." "No," I agreed. "So it's just a thread." A horn honked outside. Some delivery truck was trying to be heard through New York's thick skull. Junie put her hands together at her waist, still calm. "One more," I said. "Did you recognize the handwriting on the note?" I didn't look at it long. It frightened me. She met my eye straight. But it didn't look like anyone I know. It was printed, like a label. "All right," I stood. "Thanks, Junie. Keep practicing. If anyone bothers you, tell Lila or Chef." She nodded and went back to her batter without fuss, which was either saintly focus or a good performance. In the corridor, Hartswick exploded in a whisper. "She is honest. Her work is honest. She had no reason to do this." "That's not evidence," I said. "That's faith." He glared. She is the best of them. Then she's a good target. I signaled Lila. Who's next? Rosa Benitez, Lila said. She's in the prep room receiving produce. We walked back toward the kitchen. The hall was busier now. A couple of staff in black aprons shifted trays past us. I caught the faint, expensive scent of cologne near the teaching kitchen, and knew Voss was still sniffing around like a man checking his property for termites. Rosa was in the prep room behind the main kitchen, a long, narrow space with sinks, storage bins, and a mountain of vegetables being inventoried. She was tall, strong-armed, hair braided tight against her head, and there was tiredness behind her eyes that didn't come from a late night out. I'd seen that tiredness on the subway at 6 a.m. in people who were carrying 2 jobs and maybe a child. It makes you hard to scare and harder to buy. She looked up when we entered. Chef, Miss Vale. Rosa, Hartswick said, restraining himself with effort. This is Archie Goodwin. He needs to ask you about last night. Her eyes slid to me, steady and blunt. Okay. Entendu. Went through the same clock shaping. Where was she after 9? She had been home in Washington Heights with her little boy and her sister-in-law. Left campus at 9:30 after practice. The keycard log could verify it. She didn't smile, didn't soften, didn't get defensive. Any reason you'd sabotage the trials? I asked. Her mouth opened in a humorless curve. Why would I burn down the only ladder I've ever gotten? People do dumb things when desperate. I'm desperate to win, not to lose. She wiped a hand on her apron like she wasn't sure whether to be offended. If someone messed with the Lazari, they're trying to shame the school or hurt Chef, not me. Do you think anyone wants to hurt Chef? Her eyes narrowed. Lots of people envy him, but hate his work. That note sounded like hate. Who here hates him enough to work at it? She shrugged. Maybe somebody on the board. They're always talking about money, not food. That was interesting. She wasn't coy. She was giving me what she believed. People like that don't craft answers to please you. They craft them to survive. Do you know Mr. Voss? I asked. Her jaw tightened slightly. He comes around. He likes Elias. He doesn't hide it. What does he do when he's here? Smiles. Watches. Makes suggestions like they're orders. She paused. He and Chef don't like each other. Hartswick made a low, disgusted sound, but didn't deny it. Thanks, Rosa. I stood. We'll check the logs. Stay available. She went back to her produce without waiting for dismissal. Out in the hall, Lila said, Elias is in the demo studio. He's filming a segment for his channel. Of course he is, I said. We were almost to the studio when my phone buzzed. I looked. A text from Saul Panzer. Wolfe wants a call as soon as you have something worth saying. Also, Fritz confirms the jar is a skilled imitation, someone with access to specialty blends. Not student level. I stopped walking for half a step. Lila glanced back, questioning. Just a note from home, I said, pocketing the phone. Not student level, Fritz said. Skilled imitation, access to specialty blends. That shifted the weight on the board. Students might be ambitious, even vicious, but getting a counterfeit of a rare Sicilian pepper that could fool the eye takes either money, connections, or a real professional kitchen behind you. We reached the demo studio door. Through the glass I saw Elias Crowley under bright lights, a camera on a tripod aimed at him, a ring light catching his face like a halo. He was plating something, smiling at his own reflection in the monitor. He glanced up, saw us, and his smile didn't change. He just turned it on a new audience. I felt the temperature of the case go up a degree. Let's meet the prince, I said, and walked in. Elias Crowley had a face made for being recognized at airport gates. Not pretty exactly. Too sharp at the cheekbones for that, but vivid, like a poster that doesn't need the whole wall. He was wearing a pristine white jacket with his name embroidered in black script, and I noticed the embroidery was larger than the institute crest. The camera light haloed his dark hair, and the studio smelled of seared duck and ambition. He lifted a hand to the cameraman. Cut a second. The cameraman, a kid with stubble and a hoodie, hit pause, but stayed ready, like this was a king granting an audience. Elias walked toward us with an easy smile that had a price tag on it. Miss Vale. Chef. He nodded at Hartswick with the smoothness of a man greeting a rival in public. Then to me. And you must be Archie Goodwin. I must be, I said, unless I'm one of your subscribers in disguise. He laughed, low and friendly. I've heard of you. Wolfe's right hand. Left foot, mostly. Elias, I need a few minutes about last night, off camera. His smile dimmed only a shade. Sure, though I don't mind an audience. I do, Hartswick growled. Elias held up his hands. Okay, back room? There was a small editing nook behind the studio, all soundproof panels and a couch that had seen a lot of nervous waiting. We went in. The kid with the camera stayed outside, peering curiously through the glass. Elias perched on the arm of the couch, casual but poised. I didn't sit. A standing interview keeps people honest. They can't get sunk into comfort. Where were you after 9 last night? I asked. Here. Practicing. He said it like a man stating a virtue. I scanned out at 11:15. Alone? I had my cameraman, Theo, with me until 10. After that, yes. I wanted quiet. Finals are close. Any reason you went into the spice vault? I asked. His brows lifted slightly. I didn't. Your card would open it. So would Junie's and Rosa's and Callum's, and most instructors. Doesn't mean we all go in there for fun. I nodded. Did you ask about Lazari when it arrived? He smiled faintly. Yes, it's the star ingredient. I'm a finalist, not a monk. Naturally, I wanted to see it. Chef said no. He looked straight at Hartswick. The smile was still there, but now it was the thin kind. Chef likes power, I understand. I didn't press. Do you resent being told no? I asked. He glanced at me with mild amusement. Does anyone enjoy it? Some people act on it. The pepper was swapped for a counterfeit blend. That kind of blend takes knowledge and access beyond a student pantry. His posture didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. You think I'd do that? To what end? End could be winning, could be publicity, could be spite, could be blackmail. I'm just gathering ends right now. Winning by ruining the trials makes no sense, he said evenly. If the competition is tainted, the prize is worthless. Also, I'm already sponsored. I don't need a scandal. Not need, I said, but maybe like. He chuckled. I like clean victories and clean kitchens. Then why were you here with a camera last night? Hartswick snapped. You're training to be a chef, not an influencer. Elias turned his head slowly. I am training to be a modern chef. People don't eat secrets anymore. They eat stories. Hartswick opened his mouth, and I could see the words he wanted to throw. I slid in first. Theo can confirm your timeline. Yes, he has footage. He'd love to show it to you. Don't need your love, I said. Need the footage. He nodded lightly. You'll have it. All right. I watched him for a beat. Anybody here you think would sabotage the Institute? A small pause. Depends on what kind of sabotage you mean. That in the kitchen. He took his time. Callum's temper could light a match, but he's not subtle. Junie hates conflict. Rosa's too busy surviving. If you're looking for subtle, you should look at people who benefit from subtlety. Like who? His eyes slid to the glass, toward the main corridor. Board members, donors, people with stakes larger than a trophy. He didn't say Voss, but he might as well have signed it. You and Mr. Voss are close? I asked. He smiled wider again, back in performance mode. He's a sponsor. He invests in talent. It's a professional relationship. Does he want you to win badly? I want me to win badly. He hopped off the couch arm and straightened his jacket. But I don't cheat. That's a personal creed? It's market strategy, he said. Cheaters get exposed. I don't get exposed. That was either a confession of innocence or a confession of expertise. In either case, it was useful. I said, stay on campus today. We may need you again. Of course. He opened the door for us with a gesture a maitre d' would envy. Good luck, Archie. I hope you catch whoever's messing with our kitchen. I'd like to cook in peace. We stepped out. The kid Theo sprang up, eager. Everything okay? Depends on your definition, I told him. You have footage from last night? He nodded. Yeah, we shot B-roll at the station. Why? Because I'm going to need to see it. Don't delete anything. His mouth fell open a little. Whoa. Is this serious? Serious enough to keep your hands off the editing app, I said. I gave him my number, and he typed it in with the solemnity of a kid being drafted. In the corridor, Lila's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked at me with a tightness around the eyes. Security's sending me the access logs. They say there was a vault entry at 10:52 p.m. last night. Hartswick stiffened. Who? She glanced down. Keycard used was yours, chef. The hallway seemed to go quiet for a second, even though kids were clattering trays behind us. Hartswick's face went red in a slow, dangerous tide. Impossible. I did not come back last night. Could your card have been used by someone else? I asked. He glared as if I'd suggested he poach an egg in cold water. My card is in my wallet. My wallet was in my pocket. Cards can be cloned, I said, or borrowed for 30 seconds. His jaw worked. No one borrows my wallet. That's your opinion, I said gently. The log says the vault opened at 10:52 with your credential. Either you went in, or someone wanted it to look like you did. Lila swallowed. There's more. The main teaching kitchen door was opened at 10:43 with a staff card. The ID belongs to Assistant Instructor Greta Sloan. Hartswick blinked in surprise. Greta? She left at 7. She called me from Queens at 9. Phone location? I asked. I don't know. He looked suddenly older in the face. Greta is loyal. She would never... Never is a lazy word, I said. Let's not use it. Lila was already moving. Greta is teaching a breakfast lab. I'll ask her to come to the office. Ask, and don't look like you're asking, I said. If she bolts, we learn something fast. We walked briskly toward Lila's admin suite. My head was doing that quiet, wolf-like sorting you can't stop once it starts. Card used that points at Hartswick. Card used that points at Sloan. Somebody with access to staff cards, or ability to replicate them. Somebody who knew the cabinets intimately. Somebody who had a counterfeit blend that fooled the packaging. That means a pro supplier, not a kid in a dorm with a grinder. Voss. His company supplies imported ingredients. He's in the building this morning like a man checking the stage before curtain. But motives matter more than access. Why frame Hartswick? Why risk the scandal that would kill the institute you claim to sponsor? Unless killing the institute is the point, or forcing it to heal. We reached Lila's small office area. She ducked inside to make the call. I stood in the hall with Hartswick. He was staring at the floor, breathing hard through his nose. Anger and hurt were wrestling inside him, neither winning. Chef, I said quietly. He looked up. If someone is aiming at you, and I think they are, the best weapon you can give me is restraint. His laugh came out rough. Restraint is for pastry cooks, not for men who build kitchens. Tell that to Wolfe, I said. He can restrain himself so hard the furniture groans, but it wins cases. He took a long breath. Very well. I will sit on my hands if I must. That's the spirit. I checked my watch. 9:40. If Greta comes in nervous, watch her eyes. If she comes in angry, watch her hands. If she comes in calm, watch your back. He stared. Is that another one of Wolfe's rules? It's mine, I said. I've lived longer on the street than I look. Lila emerged. She's on her way. 2 minutes. Good. I pulled out my phone and dialed home. As it rang, I watched the corridor. Wolfe answered, voice unhurried. Yes, Archie. Report from the trenches, I said. We interviewed Callum, Junie, Rosa, and Elias. No confessions. Plenty of finger-pointing. Biggest development is security logs. Spice Vault opened at 10:52 p.m. with Hartswick's keycard, and the kitchen door at 10:43 with assistant instructor Greta Sloane's. Both claim they were elsewhere. Either two liars or one smart framer. Fritz says the counterfeit pepper is professional grade, not student work. A short silence. I could picture Wolfe's eyes narrowing. Professional grade, he murmured. And a donor who supplies imports, yes? Graham Voss is here this morning, sniffing the kitchen like he owns it. Interesting. Another pause. Archie, the note, let them taste what they deserve. Smacks of moral indignation. Not youthful prank. The framing of a Hartswick suggests leverage. Observe the donor, and the assistant instructor. I will reflect. You do that, I said. I'll keep moving. I hung up as footsteps approached. A woman in a charcoal chef's coat came down the hall with quick, clipped strides. Mid-40s, hair in a neat bun, eyes sharp behind rectangular glasses. That had to be Greta Sloane. Her face was calm, but not easy calm. The kind of calm people wear when they don't yet know what the charge is. She reached us, and her eyes went immediately to Hartswick. Matteo, Lila said you needed me. He held himself rigid, hands literally clasped behind his back, as promised. Yes, come in. She followed him into Lila's office, and I stepped in after them, thinking if someone had used her card, she'd be frantic. If she'd used her card herself, she might be scared. If she was part of something bigger, she'd be ready. Either way, the next few minutes were going to tell me which taste she thought people deserved. Greta Sloane took the chair Lila indicated without asking why, which told me she'd been in rooms like this before, and not only for budget meetings. She sat straight, hands folded on her lap, and looked from Hartswick to Lila to me as if she were silently arranging us by rank. That's a useful habit in a kitchen, less useful in an interrogation. Lila closed the door. The office was small enough to make 3 people feel like furniture. I leaned against the file cabinet with my arms crossed so I could watch everybody at once. Hartswick stayed standing by the window, as far from the chair as the room allowed. He was obeying my restraint advice, but the muscles in his jaw were doing push-ups. Greta, Lila began carefully. We've had a security issue overnight. We're reviewing access logs. Greta's eyes narrowed slightly. I heard rumors. Someone went into the teaching kitchen. Someone did more than go in, Hartswick said, voice controlled. They tampered with the Lazari pepper. Greta's eyebrows went up. Real surprise. Lazari, that's insane. Those tins were sealed. They were sealed this morning and empty, Hartswick snapped, and the log says your card opened the kitchen door at 10:43 last night. Her head came back a fraction, not recoiling exactly, more like a boxer who just heard a bell she didn't expect. My card, she said. That's impossible. I left at 7. I went home. I was in Queens by 8:30. Can anyone verify that? I asked. She turned to me. The gaze was brisk, assessing. You're Goodwin. That's what the paperwork says. Yes, she said. My neighbor, Mrs. Patel, saw me come in. I called my sister at 9. I was in bed by 10. Where was your card after 7? I asked. In my bag, always. She touched the side pocket of her coat, reflexively. No one uses it but me. Do you ever leave your bag unattended? I asked. Her mouth tightened. In the staff lounge sometimes, but it's staff only. Staff is not saints, I said. Greta looked toward Hartswick, then back. Matteo, if you're implying I did this, you've gone off the rails. Hartswick flared, then held it down. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking what the hell happened. The log says your card opened the spice vault at 10:52, Lila said softly. Greta's head turned sharply. His card? Yes. She stared at Hartswick, and I watched the moment a suspicion landed in her mind. She didn't like it. She also didn't reject it outright. That makes no sense, she said, unless someone cloned cards. Is that possible here? I asked. She frowned. Keycards are standard RFID. With the right reader, you could copy one in seconds. Who might have such a reader? I asked. Greta gave a humorless little laugh. Half the tech department at NYU? Any security contractor? Anyone in a donor company that manages access systems? Like Voss Culinary Imports, maybe, I said lightly. Her eyes flicked. Graham Voss doesn't manage our access systems. No, but he has money and contacts, and he's in the building this morning. Greta's nostrils flared. Why is he here? Because he's influential, Lila said. Same word as earlier. Same distaste. He arrived around 9. Greta looked from Lila to me. So he was here after the fact. That doesn't answer why my card shows up at 10:43. It helps if we ask this another way, I said. Greta, is there anyone who'd want to plant your card on a log? Anyone you've crossed? Her lips pressed together. She didn't answer right away. That alone was an answer. I teach fundamentals, she said finally. I fail people who aren't ready. Some resent it. Resent enough to stage a break-in and tamper with rare pepper, I asked. She hesitated. Maybe not a B student then. Who else have you failed lately? I asked. Or blocked? Her jaw set. I recommended that Elias Crowley not be advanced to finalists at all. His knife work is erratic. His palate is untrained, but he has an audience and a sponsor. Voss, Hartswick muttered. Greta nodded sharply. Yes, Voss pressured the board. He didn't ask. He pushed. There was a little silence. In it, I heard things aligning in a line that didn't look nice. What happened between you and Voss? I asked. Nothing dramatic, she said stiffly. 2 weeks ago, after he learned I'd filed that recommendation, he came to my office. He said I was old-fashioned and out of step with modern culinary education. He suggested I should consider stepping back after the trials. Threatened your job. Suggested. She spat the word. But yes, threatened. And you told Hartswick? Greta flicked a glance at him. I did. He told me to ignore it. Hartswick said flatly, You know I would never allow a donor to dictate my staff. You try, she shot back. But donors have knives too. They just keep them in velvet. That line was too good to be accidental. Greta was angry enough to be honest, and still smart enough to make it land. I said, Greta, last question. When the Lazary shipment arrived, who handled it? She answered in a heartbeat. Shipping clerk logged it. I was present when it was inventoried. Matteo signed the seal receipt. Lila locked it in the vault. And any jars went missing before last night? No, I would have known. All right. I straightened. You're not going anywhere yet, but I'm not charging you with anything either. Someone may have used your card without your knowledge. She exhaled, but her eyes were still bright with anger. Then find out who. Because whoever did this is not just attacking the trials, they're undermining the Institute. And you can tell, Wolfe, I said this. Scandal is a tool for people who can afford a mess. Students can't. I liked her for that. Not because she was right, though she might be, but because she was thinking in the right direction. Stakes and power, not tantrums. We stepped out into the hall. Hartswick waited until the door shut, and then said through his teeth, So Voss is behind this. Maybe, I said. But the move is crooked even for a donor. He's risking the institute he funds. He doesn't fund it out of charity. Hartswick's face twisted. He wants control. He wants the trials in his pocket. Control is a motive, I said. But it still doesn't explain the note. That line reeks of grievance, not strategy. Lila rubbed her temple. There's another detail. Security checked the loading dock cameras. At 10:18 last night, a delivery van backed in. It had a Voss Imports logo. I looked at her. A van came here after hours? Yes, the guard thought it was authorized because of the logo, and the driver had a staff badge. What staff badge? He couldn't see clearly. The camera angle is poor, but the van stayed 12 minutes, then left. Hartswick went white around the mouth. That dock is locked at night. The guard would only open it if he believed it was official. Exactly, I said. Which means whoever did this wanted to look official. A Voss van, a staff badge, cloned cards. That's a lot of theater for a simple spice swap. What if it wasn't simple? Lila whispered. I didn't answer immediately, because my brain had flicked back to Saul's text and Fritz's verdict. Professional-grade imitation. You don't make that on a whim. You make that in advance, waiting for the right moment. We walked back toward the teaching kitchen. Through the glass wall I saw Voss again, standing at the central prep island, talking to Theo with the easy manner of a man buying loyalty with charm. Elias was nearby, laughing at something Voss had said. The two of them looked like a billboard for aspiration. When Voss saw us, he lifted a hand in greeting and came toward the door. Chef Hartswick, he said, tone smooth as clarified butter. Lila, Archie, still chasing ghosts in my pantry? Your pantry, Hartswick growled. Voss smiled as if indulging a child. I meant the Institute's pantry, of course. I'm only a humble benefactor. Then you won't mind a few questions, I said, cheerful. His eyes rested on me, the way a banker evaluates a loan. Ask. Your import van was here last night at 10:18. Why? He didn't even blink. We made a late delivery of specialty produce, truffles and citrus for the finals. I arranged it with the dock guard earlier in the week. Dock guard says he doesn't remember being arranged with. Voss shrugged lightly. Guards remember what they're paid to remember. I'll have my logistics manager call you. And who drove it? He frowned as if searching memory. A driver. Name's on the manifest. The manifest can be forged. Your logo's on the van. Your company has access to rare spices. Your favorite candidate is a finalist. Someone used your brand like a key last night. That's why I'm asking you directly. Voss's smile thinned but didn't fall away. You think I sabotage the trials I sponsor? That's imaginative. Imagination is my job. Facts are next. I watched his hands. They remained relaxed at his sides. No fidget, no clench. Either he was innocent, or he was a kind of guilty I rarely meet. You'll have the manifest, he said. And I have an alibi. I was at the Met Gala preview dinner until midnight. Ask anyone who matters. That's easy enough to check, I said. He leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. Archie, you and Wolfe are welcome to play detective, but don't make this mess bigger than it is. The calls I'm already getting from sponsors are unpleasant. If word reaches the press, you'll have helped destroy what you pretend to protect. There's the velvet knife, I said, nodding. His eyes sharpened. Excuse me? Nothing, I smiled. Just admiring your cutlery set. He held my gaze a second longer, then turned away with a smoothness that felt rehearsed. Elias followed him, looking uneasy now, like a man watching two friends glare before a duel. I stood there in the corridor thinking, if Voss was innocent, someone had impersonated his company to frame Hartswick and Sloane and maybe Voss himself. If Voss was guilty, he was playing a deeper game than prize trials. Either way, the kitchen wasn't the only thing compromised. I pulled out my phone to text Saul for that footage timeline and access log. But before I could, Lila's voice came sharp behind me. "Archie, look." She was pointing through the glass at a pantry cabinet door hanging open. A student assistant stood frozen beside it, holding a tin in one hand. His face was pale. "What is it?" I said, already moving. The assistant swallowed. "Ms. Vale, chef. I was restocking for the afternoon lab. One of the sugar bins." His voice squeaked. "It's full of salt." Salt. In a teaching kitchen on the morning after a spice sabotage. I felt the case tilt, like a floor you thought was level suddenly giving way under your feet. "Okay," I said quietly. "Now we're done with ghosts." Because someone wasn't just swapping pepper, they were laying traps. And the next taste they meant people to get might not be metaphorical at all. When the door shut behind Lila Vale, the office felt as if someone had turned down the city noise with a brass knob. It wasn't silent. New York isn't built that way, but it was brownstone silent, which means civilized. The kind of hush Wolfe believes the human race invented so it could digest properly. Wolfe had already drifted back into his book like a man returning to a bath that had kept its temperature. I didn't move for a minute. I was letting the day settle, which is a euphemism for trying to catch up to it. "You were right about the note," I said finally. He turned a page. It would be disquieting if I were not. Still, the real spice being resentment. Nice catch. He didn't look up. "Archie, resentment is the most versatile seasoning in human affairs. It can flavor industry, marriage, philanthropy, crime. Its only defect is that it is bitter. That's why people like to hide it inside something rare," I said. "Like pepper." Wolfe's eyes lifted to me at last, patient and a little tired in the deep way that comes after a clean solve. "You will observe that Mr. Kroll's bitterness was not primarily moral. It was economic. Yeah, he wanted revenge and a payday. That's New York for you. Nobody does anything for one reason if two will fit in the same suitcase." He gave a small grunt of agreement, then closed the book with care and let his hands rest on his abdomen. The case, to him, was already boxed and shelved, but he knew I wasn't done chewing on it. That's my occupational hazard. "Wolfe finishes," I reread. "So he was maintenance," I said. "He had keys to the back of the place, time at night, and a grudge. But how did he get his hands on a professional counterfeit that could fool Fritz for half a second?" Wolfe's mouth curved faintly. "You recall his former position. Logistics at Voss Imports, yeah, meaning he knew what was in which crate. And he knew, perhaps better than Mr. Voss, what his warehouse did not account for," Wolfe said. "A competent thief is not one who steals much. It is one who steals a little over time in the right place. He siphoned Lazary off early, replaced it with the fake, then staged last night to speed up the panic and to make sure we looked in the wrong direction." "Precisely." I scratched the side of my head. "Still, a bold move to impersonate Bando's limp. That kind of framing takes nerve." "Nerve is cheaper than caution," Wolfe said. "A man who feels wronged believes himself permitted any stratagem. He does not fear your codes of decency as much as he fears being ignored. Which is why he left that envelope. Wanted applause." "Wanted leverage," Wolfe corrected. Applause would have been a trivial bonus. I nodded, letting it align. The whole thing had been a lesson in stagecraft. Use Voss's logo to draw the eye. Use Bando's limp to provide a body. Use Hartswick's and Sloane's cards to make internal war bloom. Leave moral notes so it looks like righteous sabotage, not a cash and blood grievance. Then fish in the chaos for a buyout or a confession. "But there's one thing," I said. "If Kroll was fired for pilfering, why'd Voss ever let him into the Institute as a contractor? That's asking for a snake to mind your rabbit hutch." Wolfe's eyes sharpened. "We do not know he did. The Institute hires maintenance through a contractor. The contractor hires men. The chain of responsibility in such arrangements is intentionally diffuse. It is the modern form of cowardice. I leaned back. So Voss is still guilty of enabling by being Voss. Guilty of arrogance, Wolfe said, and of pressing his influence where it ought not to be pressed. It is a common affliction of donors. They confuse support with ownership. I grinned. You did tell him off pretty neatly. I was restrained. Wolfe's tone was mild but satisfied. If he learns anything, it will not be from my words, but from his inconvenience. Yeah, nothing educates a man like seeing his name on a van in a crime log. He made a soft noise that might have been amusement. A moment later, Fritz appeared in the doorway, hands folded on his apron, a kind of quiet triumph in his posture. Dinner is served, he announced. Wolfe rose, slowly, majestically, as if gravity were his employee. Excellent. We went to the dining room. Fritz had made duck, sure enough, with a sauce that smelled like forgiveness and threat. I won't say what else was on the plate because I have a reputation to maintain among people who think I live on coffee and wisecracks, but I will say that if culinary education could be taught in this room, nobody would ever graduate dishonest. Halfway through the second course, Wolfe broke a silence that had been purely gastronomic. Chef Hartswick's distress was genuine, he said. His devotion to a kitchen is admirable. Also combustible, I said. He was ready to roast Bando alive. Bando, Wolfe murmured. A suitable caution. A man may be ambitious and still innocent. It is an error to believe that rivalry is synonymous with crime. You'll have to tell New York that. We're a city that thinks envy is a municipal service. Wolfe's fork paused. His eyes went distant in the way they do when he's ending a thing properly. You have spent the day among young chefs, he said. Some are vain, some desperate, some earnest. Yet you did not find corruption among them. No, I said, just fear, and a lot of pride. He nodded. Pride is useful when tethered to skill. It becomes poisonous only when tethered to entitlement. Mr. Kroll believed he was entitled to redress through sabotage. Mr. Voss believes he's entitled to steer an institution by virtue of his wealth. Both are forms of folly. The kids just want to cook, I said. Even Elias. He's a peacock, but he wants to win straight. Wolfe allowed a thin smile. Perhaps he will learn that a story is not the same as a dish, though both require judicious seasoning. We finished dessert. Coffee came, black and honest. The house felt restored, the way it always does after Wolfe wins a contest of minds. He isn't theatrical about it. He doesn't preen. He just returns to his rhythms as if the world had briefly hiccuped and then corrected itself. When I went back to the office to jot my report for the file, because if you don't write things down, Wolfe will make you write them down twice, I found a small envelope on my desk. No stamp, no soot mark, just my name in Fritz's neat hand. Inside was a slip of paper for the pantry. Taped to it was a tiny muslin sachet of actual Lazari pepper. I carried it to the kitchen. Fritz was rinsing pans, humming the kind of tune that doesn't need an audience. I held out the sachet. He opened it, inhaled, and his eyes went soft for a second. Ah, this is true Lazari. Consider it restitution, I said. From the Institute. Lila sent it over with a thank you note. She said the trials will go on with sealed supervision and a new vendor. Fritz nodded gravely. Good. A kitchen must be defended. Even against feelings, I said. Especially against feelings. I left him there, back in his rightful dominion, and climbed upstairs. Wolfe had his book open again. The orchids upstairs would be watered in the morning. The brownstone was itself. Anything else? I asked. He didn't look up. Only that you should sleep. Tomorrow will be tedious. I'm a connoisseur of tedium, I said. Indeed. I turned out the office lamp and headed for the stairs. Outside, the city moved on, as it always does. Ambition cooking, resentment simmering, money circling like a hungry gourmand. But inside this house, the air was clean again. And if there's any morale to a day like this, it's the one Wolfe gave me in his quiet, heavy voice. Civilization isn't a trophy, or a donation, or a televised final. Civilization is the choice to keep bitterness out of the food.